My job is to listen to the dead, not in a supernatural sense. I'm an audio archivist for the state police. I digitize the ghosts of old cases, interrogation tapes, witness statements, wiretaps from the 70s and 80s. This vault is my world, a silent, climate-controlled library of confessions and lies. The hum of the servers is the only company I keep. Most of it is mundane, the sad, boring mechanics of human failure. But sometimes, you find a story, a whisper of something truly dark, captured on a quarter-inch of magnetic tape. I was hired to preserve these whispers. I had no idea that one of them was still alive, and that the old librarian had spent his life trying to keep it silent. The first anomaly was a misfiled tape. In a system defined by meticulous, almost obsessive order, a single tape box was out of place. Box 413, it was sitting on my desk when I came in, though the vault had been locked. There was a handwritten note on it, in a shaky, archaic script. Do not listen, do not digitize. Let it fade. I checked the logs. The tape was from a 1978 case, the interrogation of a cult leader who had talked his followers into a mass suicide. The archivist at the time was a man named Abernathy. The old records clerk upstairs told me he was a strange, quiet man who worked in this vault alone for 30 years. They said he died down here, a heart attack, right at his desk. I thought the note was just the rambling of an old man spooked by a disturbing case. I put the tape back in its correct place on the shelf and tried to forget about it. I was working on a different case, a simple burglary confession. I had my headphones on, focusing on cleaning up the hiss on the old tape. And then I heard it, bleeding through the recording. A voice. It wasn't the detective or the suspect. It was a third voice. A calm, seductive, and deeply hypnotic whisper that wasn't on the original track. Are you listening? It whispered, the voice seeming to come from right behind me. I ripped my headphones off. The sound booth was silent. I checked my equipment. No interference, no crossed signals. I rewound the tape. The whisper was gone. It hadn't been on the tape, it had been in the machine. A ghost in the signal path. I felt a cold dread creep up my spine. The silence of the vault no longer felt empty. It felt like it was listening to me. That night, I saw him. I was walking down a long, dark aisle of shelves, heading for the exit. I heard a faint, dry rustling sound from the aisle over. I peered through the gap between the tall shelves, and I saw the ghost of a thin, stooped man in an old, grey cardigan. Mr. Abernathy. He was running his fingers along the spines of the tape boxes, like a librarian checking his collection. He wasn't looking at me. He seemed lost in his eternal, silent work. Then he stopped. He pulled a single tape box from the shelf, tape 413. He held it for a moment, then slowly turned his gaunt, worried face in my direction. He raised a single, translucent finger to his lips in a clear, silent gesture. She, then he, and the tape box simply faded away into the shadows. He wasn't trying to scare me. He was trying to warn me. I was terrified, but I had to know what was on that tape. The next day, I found tape 413 back in its proper place. I took it into the sound booth, my hands trembling as I threaded the magnetic tape into the machine. I put on my headphones and pressed play. The first thing I heard was his voice. The cult leader. It was mesmerizing. It was calm, reasonable, and utterly hypnotic. He wasn't confessing. He was preaching. He spoke of shedding the static of the flesh and achieving a pure signal clarity. He wasn't a madman. He was a sound engineer of the soul. His voice was a perfect sine wave of persuasion. The detective interviewing him sounded tired, his questions becoming less and less focused. The ghost on the tape wasn't the victim. It was the weapon. A voice so powerful, so persuasive, it could convince a man to do anything, even to die. I couldn't stop listening. His voice was a drug. I spent the whole day playing the tape, making notes, but my notes became strange, rambling philosophical screeds. I started to hear his voice even when the tape was off, a calm, reassuring whisper in my head, telling me that the noise of the world was a distraction, that true peace was in the silence. In the fading of the signal, I went home that night and found myself standing in front of my own closet, holding a belt, a strange calm sense of purpose in my mind. I caught my own reflection in the mirror, and my face was as blank and serene as the cult leader's followers must have been. I snapped out of it, a wave of cold terror washing over me. The voice on the tape wasn't just a recording, it was a psychic contagion, and I was infected. The next day, I went back with one goal: to destroy that tape. I walked into the vault and went straight for shelf 400, but the tape was gone. I heard a sound from my sound booth. I ran over. The door was locked. I looked through the window. Inside, the ghost of Mr. Abernathy was standing in front of the tape machine, which was playing tape 413 on a loop. He wasn't listening. He was fighting it. The entire booth was shaking with a psychic energy. The ghost was using every ounce of his residual consciousness to contain the voice, to physically prevent it from broadcasting out into the vault. He was a spiritual Faraday cage, a ghostly librarian who had died trying to contain this evil and was still, in death, trying to do his job. He was a silent sentinel, and I had just led the enemy right past him. I had to help him. I saw the main circuit breaker for the vault on the far wall. I knew what I had to do. As the ghost of Abernathy began to flicker and weaken, the hypnotic voice from the tape started to bleed out, whispering from every speaker in the vault. Let go. Find the silence. I fought against the pull of its words, my own mind starting to feel fuzzy and serene. I made it to the breaker box and I threw the main switch. The power to the entire vault died, plunging everything into absolute, pitch-black darkness and silence. But the tape machine in the booth didn't stop. It was now glowing with a hellish, red light, running on its own infernal power. And the voice was now booming, amplified by the sudden silence. I hadn't cut it off. I had just eliminated all the other noise. I had given it the perfect, silent stage to perform. I was trapped in the dark with the voice. It was inside my head, showing me beautiful, silent, empty landscapes, promising peace. I was losing. Then, a new sound. The scrape of metal. The ghost of Mr. Abernathy appeared beside me. He was holding a large, heavy, and very real tape degausser, a powerful electromagnet used to wipe tapes. He must have been trying to use it when he died. He couldn't lift it himself, but he could guide me. He pointed a trembling, spectral finger from the degausser to the glowing red booth. Together, we carried the heavy machine to the door. We broke the glass. As the hypnotic voice screamed in my mind, I held the humming electromagnet over the spinning reels of the cursed tape. The red light flickered and died. The voice in my head dissolved into a final, agonized shriek of static. And then, for the first time, there was true silence. The emergency lights flickered on. The booth was dark. The ghost of Mr. Abernathy looked at me, and the worried, frantic expression he had worn for 40 years was gone, replaced by one of profound, weary peace. He gave me a single, grateful nod, and then faded away into the quiet air, his watch finally over. I didn't quit. How could I? I understood now. This vault wasn't just a library of stories. It was a prison for them, and it needed a warden. I still digitize the old tapes, but some of them, the ones that feel wrong, I put them aside. I have a new, small, locked section in the back of the vault. It's for the whispers that are too dangerous to be heard. My name is Leo, and I am the new tape librarian. And my job is not to make sure every story is preserved. It's to make sure some stories stay silent.